Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're really diving deep into the idea of thought management and how it ties into emotional well-being. And you know what got us thinking about this? You. You seemed really interested in a certain YouTube video. You know the one? It summarizes "Don't Believe Everything You Think" by Joseph Nguyen.
Yeah, yes, that's a good one. Really gets you thinking.
It does. It's concise, it's in Arabic, and it really seems like you guys want to explore how our thoughts, really shape our emotions and how that all leads to happiness or not.
Right, right.
So we're going to unpack some powerful concepts here. Get ready to explore how we can actually unlearn suffering and tap into a more peaceful, joyful way of being.
That's what we're all striving for, right?
It is. And the video doesn't waste any time. It jumps right into this idea of the physical and emotional sides of suffering. And this two arrows idea, wow, that really stood out to me. We might have more control over that second arrow than we realize.
It's a classic Buddhist teaching, the two arrows. The first arrow represents unavoidable physical pain, think illness, injury, that kind of thing. But the second arrow, that's the reaction to the pain, the emotional suffering we kind of pile on top.
So it's like the first arrow is just part of life, right?
Exactly.
The second arrow is where things can get really messy.
It is. Think of it like this. Two people experience the same thing. Let's say a fender bender. One person might be shaken up, but also relieved no one's seriously hurt.
Yeah, it makes sense.
The other person, though, they might totally freak out, get angry, focus on the inconvenience, worry about the costs, all that.
Same first arrow, but wow, totally different second arrows.
Precisely.
Okay, so that example makes it crystal clear, right? Our thoughts and how we interpret stuff plays a huge role in how much we actually suffer. And that leads us to the next big idea from the video, which is the power of our thoughts. It's like we think we're calling the shots, but so often they're the ones running the show.
And it's not always easy to recognize that, is it?
No, it's not.
Understanding how our brains work can really shed light on this, though. You know about negativity bias, right? It's that thing where our minds tend to zero in on potential threats, negative stuff.
Like our brain's default setting is to look for danger.
In a way, yes. It was essential for our ancestors, helped them avoid saber-toothed tigers and all that.
Oh, interesting.
But in today's world, not so helpful. It can trap us in a cycle of worry and anxiety. Our brains are still in fight or flight mode, even when there's, no real danger.
So we're not necessarily choosing to be negative. Our brains are kind of wired to scan for threats.
Yeah, it can feel like those negative thoughts have a life of their own, can it?
For sure.
And the video has this great metaphor. It talks about dirty water. Trying to force out negative thoughts is like stirring up muddy water. It just makes it worse. Instead, we need to let things settle so that clarity can emerge naturally.
Ah, okay. So this is where the difference between thoughts and thinking comes in, right?
Exactly. It's not about erasing all thoughts, but more about becoming aware of the stories we build around them.
So how do you distinguish between just having thoughts and actually getting caught up in the thinking?
Think of thoughts like those little bubbles that pop up in your mind all the time. You can't control what pops up, but you can choose how you react to them. Thinking is when you grab onto one of those bubbles and start analyzing it, judging it, letting it spiral out of control.
I'm starting to get it. It's like if someone asks how much money you want to earn, the first number that pops into your head, that's a thought.
Right.
Then if you start multiplying it by 10 and stressing about how to reach that, that's the thinking taking over.
That's it. And this is where something called flow state comes in, which the video talks about. It's about being totally immersed in the present, where thoughts kind of fade into the background.
Like being in the zone, right?
Exactly.
Athletes often talk about that.
They do. And the video suggests that to tap into this flow state more easily, we need to stop overthinking and just take action.
I love that. It's like that saying, don't think, just do.
Sometimes it's really that simple. But what happens when we get overwhelmed by thoughts, even when we try to focus on the now? The video tells a story about a Zen monk struggling with distractions while meditating. Something we can all probably relate to.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That whole trying to meditate and your mind just won't quiet down thing.
It happens to the best of us. And the point of the story is, it's not the distractions themselves that are the problem, it's our reaction to them. It's that mental commentary about the noisy cat or the to-do list that causes suffering, not the distractions themselves.
So it's not about silencing the mind completely. It's more about cultivating awareness, like being an observer of those thoughts without judging them.
Exactly. Awareness is key for managing thoughts and emotions. It creates space between us and our knee-jerk reactions so we can choose how we respond.
And that reminds me of something else from the video. Nothing in this world is inherently good or bad.
It's our perception, our thoughts, that label things as good or bad.
That's such a powerful reframe. It suggests we have way more control than we think. I love the analogy of piano keys. Each key isn't good or bad on its own. It depends on the song being played.
Exactly. It's the same with life events. We can shift our experience by changing how we interpret things. But let's be honest, this not thinking thing can feel strange, maybe even a little scary, especially at first.
It's like venturing into uncharted territory, right?
It is. Like learning any new skill, it takes practice and patience. Remember, it's not about wiping out thoughts entirely, it's about changing our relationship with them. Instead of being controlled by them, we become the observer.
So we're not aiming to be emotionless robots.
Definitely not. It's about cultivating awareness and allowing ourselves to experience the full spectrum of human emotions without getting swept away by them.
Okay, I think I'm following you. This deep dive is already changing the way I think about my own thoughts and feelings. But the big question is, how do we actually move from overthinking to a state of flow?
That's where the real work begins. And luckily, the video offers some specific guidance. One of the key practices it emphasizes is mindfulness meditation.
That makes sense. Mindfulness is all about cultivating awareness, right?
It is. It's a practice that helps us become more tuned into our thoughts and feelings without judgment, creating space for peace and clarity.
But isn't it true that it takes years of, like, dedicated meditation practice to see any real benefits?
That's a common myth. Even just a few minutes of mindful breathing every day can make a difference. It's like exercising a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger your awareness gets.
Okay, that's good to know. Because I was thinking, who has time to meditate for hours every day?
Right. The good news is, even small efforts can yield results. And the video also offers other practical tips for building a more positive mindset, like surrounding yourself with positive influences and making a conscious effort to focus on things you're grateful for.
So it's not just about the formal meditation practice. It's about creating a lifestyle that supports a more peaceful, joyful way of being.
That's the essence of it, making small, consistent choices that align with your values and what you want in life. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. There will be times when you slip back into old patterns of overthinking, and that's okay. The key is to notice it without beating yourself up and gently redirect your attention back to the present moment.
This all connects back to that idea that we have more control over our emotional well-being than we often realize. It's empowering to think that we're not just victims of our thoughts. We can actually choose to cultivate a more positive and peaceful inner world.
That's the heart of the message. And it's a message that resonates with so many people searching for greater peace and fulfillment.
This has been so insightful. We've explored those two eras of suffering, the power our thoughts have, the importance of awareness, and the whole flow state idea.
And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll go even deeper into the practical strategies the video offers for creating a more positive mindset. We'll be talking about specific techniques for managing those pesky negative thoughts and embracing gratitude.
Okay, so we've established that we're not just puppets to our thoughts. That's pretty amazing in itself, don't you think?
Right. Realizing that is huge.
But then what? How do we actually start using these ideas, in real life?
Well, the video doesn't just stop at the concepts. It gives us some real tools we can use, techniques to try out.
Yeah, like what? Give us the good stuff.
Remember that powerful statement, the one that said, nothing in this world is inherently good or bad. That's not just some, deep philosophical idea. It's something we can actually use to reframe how we see things.
Okay, so let's say you're stuck in traffic,
Right.
something we all hate. Instead of going down that negative spiral, like, ugh, this is horrible, I'm going to be so late, how would you use that reframe idea?
You could start by acknowledging that the traffic jam itself isn't good or bad. It just is what it is, cars on a road.
I guess, but it's still annoying, right?
Sure, but instead of focusing on the negative, you shift your attention. Maybe you use the time to listen to a podcast you've been meaning to check out.
Right, make the best of it.
Exactly. Or maybe you practice some mindful breathing. Or even just appreciate the fact that you have a car and a place to go.
So you're not denying the reality of the situation, but you're choosing to see it from a different angle, like looking at a patch of blue sky instead of the whole storm cloud.
That's a great way to put it. And that shift in perspective can totally change how you feel. Instead of being stressed and angry, you might end up feeling calmer, maybe even grateful.
Which brings us to another big idea the video talks about: gratitude. I gotta be honest, sometimes it feels a little, cheesy. Does it really make a difference?
It sounds simple, I know. But focusing on what you appreciate is a powerful way to counteract negativity. It shifts your attention away from what's missing.
Okay, so instead of dwelling on what's wrong, we make an effort to look for the good. But isn't that kind of like ignoring reality?
No, it's not about pretending everything's perfect. It's about acknowledging the tough stuff alongside the good, finding that balance. And there's actually lots of research that shows that practicing gratitude can really improve your well-being, both mentally and physically.
Really? What kind of benefits are we talking about?
Studies have shown that people who practice gratitude regularly, they tend to have less stress, they sleep better, their immune systems are stronger, they even bounce back from setbacks more easily.
Wow, okay. That's pretty convincing. So how do we actually make gratitude like a part of our lives?
Start small. Take a few minutes each day to think about things you appreciate. You can even keep a gratitude journal.
A gratitude journal. That feels a bit, I don't know,
Like what?
cheesy, like writing, "Dear Diary, I'm grateful for my coffee maker." Feels kind of weird.
It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just appreciate the little things. A good cup of coffee, a pretty sunset, a random act of kindness, even having a roof over your head.
So it's about noticing and appreciating those everyday things that we usually just take for granted.
Right, and the more you practice, the more your mind starts to look for the positive automatically. And that can lead to a more positive and joyful life overall.
This ties back to that idea the video brings up, the one about happiness being our natural state. Is that, like, actually true?
It's a fascinating idea to consider, isn't it? If we believe that deep down we are peaceful and joyful beings, then suffering is just a result of our thoughts and beliefs that are covering up that natural state.
So it's like we need to clear away the mental clutter to see the real us underneath.
That's a great analogy. And while the video doesn't give us a magic formula for that, it does offer some really valuable guidance. A lot of it comes back to the practices we've been talking about: awareness, reframing, gratitude.
So by being aware, we start to see our thoughts for what they are, just thoughts, not necessarily the truth.
Exactly.
And by reframing, we choose to focus on the positive side of things. And gratitude helps us train our minds to look for the good, even when things are tough.
We're getting it. It's about actively creating a more positive and peaceful world within yourself. And that's where mindfulness meditation becomes really helpful.
Okay, so let's talk about meditation. It seems to be a recurring theme in this video. To be honest, though, whenever I try meditating, I just end up distracted and frustrated. It feels impossible to quiet my mind.
That's very common, especially when you're first starting out. The key is to approach it with curiosity and gentleness. Don't put too much pressure on yourself.
So what's the goal then, if it's not about completely emptying your mind?
It's more about noticing your thoughts without judging them and gently redirecting your attention back to your breath or whatever you're focusing on.
It's like, training a puppy. You don't get mad when it wanders off, you just gently lead it back.
That's a perfect analogy. And like with puppy training, consistency is everything. Even a few minutes of meditation each day will make a difference over time. You're building that awareness muscle, which you can then use in other parts of your life.
So it's not just about the formal meditation itself, it's about being more mindful all the time.
Exactly. Bringing that awareness to everyday activities. Eating, walking, talking, even washing the dishes.
This all sounds really helpful, but is it kind of selfish to focus so much on our own peace and happiness? Shouldn't we be, trying to make the world a better place?
That's a great question. And it points to a common misconception about personal growth. People think it's self-centered or even narcissistic. But taking care of your own well-being can actually make you more compassionate and effective at helping others.
Wait, so you're saying that by working on yourself, you become better equipped to help others?
Absolutely. Think of it like the oxygen mask on an airplane. You have to put yours on first before you can help anyone else.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. By taking care of yourself, you're filling your cup so you have something to give.
I'm really starting to see how all these pieces fit together. But what about when we face really tough times? Can these practices really help us deal with, like, loss or trauma?
That's a very important question. And it's important to acknowledge that these practices aren't a cure-all. You're always going to experience pain and suffering in life. And it's important to allow yourself to feel those emotions.
So it's not about pretending everything's fine or bottling up your feelings.
No, not at all. But these practices can help you go through those difficult experiences with more resilience and compassion. They can give you a sense of grounding and perspective when everything feels overwhelming.
like having a set of tools to help you cope when things get rough.
That's a great way to think about it. And the more you use those tools, the more readily available they become.
So it's not about being happy all the time. It's about developing the ability to handle everything life throws at you.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, good times and bad. The key is to keep practicing, keep learning, and keep growing.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. We've explored so many powerful ideas about managing our thoughts and emotions.
And in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore this not thinking idea even further. We'll talk about what it means to achieve that flow state in everyday life.
You know, thinking about everything we've discussed, like awareness, reframing, gratitude, meditation, it makes me realize they all need you to really be intentional. It's not enough to just like wish for a more peaceful, joyful life. You have to actually make choices that support that.
You're absolutely right. And the video makes it clear these aren't magic formulas or quick fixes. Real transformation takes effort, commitment.
So it's not just about reading a book or watching a video and expecting everything to change overnight. It's about putting these ideas into action consistently.
Exactly. And that's where the idea of not thinking comes in. It sounds kind of weird, but the video suggests that letting go of that need to overthink and control everything can actually open us up to a more effortless and joyful way of being.
Okay, remind me, what does not thinking even mean in this context? Because it's not about literally shutting off our brains, right?
Right. We're not trying to become zombies. It's more about shifting from that constant mental chatter to a state of presence and flow. Remember that feeling when you're so absorbed in something that you lose track of time? That's flow state.
Oh yeah, like when you're reading a really good book or lost in a creative project.
Exactly. In that flow state, your thoughts naturally calm down and you're fully present, experiencing the sense of ease and joy. And the video suggests that this flow state is actually our natural state of being, but we've gotten so used to overthinking that we've lost touch with it.
So how do we find our way back to that flow state? Can we just switch it on whenever we want?
If only it were that easy. The video's advice boils down to this.
Stop overthinking and just start doing.
It's so simple, but it makes so much sense. Sometimes we get stuck in our heads and forget to actually live. That's it exactly. Find those activities that bring you joy, that challenge you in a good way. Those are the ones that are most likely to lead to a state of flow.
So if you love to paint, paint.
Yeah,
If you love to write, write. If you're passionate about something, just go for it.
exactly. And it doesn't have to be some big, impressive thing. It could be cooking a meal, gardening, playing with your kids, having a deep conversation with a friend.
It's about finding those moments of joy and engagement in the everyday, not waiting for some big event to make us happy.
That's the key. By cultivating that not thinking state, that state of flow and presence, we naturally tap into that deeper peace and joy that the video says is our birthright.
This entire deep dive has been a real eye-opener. It's like we've been given this map for navigating our inner world and creating a more meaningful, fulfilling life.
And remember, it's not about being perfect or never having negative thoughts or emotions again. It's about building a toolbox of skills and practices that help us navigate life's ups and downs with more awareness, resilience, and joy.
It's about realizing we have more power than we think to shape our thoughts, our emotions, and ultimately our experience of life.
That's what it's all about, and that's a powerful message to carry with us.
We've covered a lot today. The two arrows of suffering, the power of thoughts, the importance of awareness, gratitude, flow state. Even explored the idea that happiness might be our natural way of being.
And we talked about some practical strategies for putting all of this into action, reframing our experiences, practicing mindfulness meditation, finding activities that bring us joy and help us enter that flow state.
It's a lot to digest, but
Yeah.
we encourage you to come back to these ideas, experiment with the practices we've discussed, and see what works for you.
And most importantly, be kind to yourself. This is a journey, not a race. There will be times when you slip back into old patterns, and that's okay. Just notice it without judgment and gently bring yourself back to the present moment.
We hope this deep dive has sparked some new ideas and inspired you to explore the amazing power of your own mind. Keep asking questions, keep growing, and keep discovering that joy and peace that lives within you.
And until next time, may your thoughts be kind, your heart be open, and your spirit be free.